Different thing that I'm saying is that you are introducing the conference, you are introducing the topic. I am quiet, then you're introducing yourself and you're taking it from there. I am quiet now, please.
Oh, Vikram, you should have given me pre-warning. Well, welcome everybody to the World Mediators Conference, and thank you to our host, Vikram, who has kindly put in the time and effort to gather mediators from all over the world and share their knowledge and experience with us. The conference was initially opened by Ken Cloke on the 18th of May, where we celebrated his birthday also. So it was a great day for everybody. And we've had amazing insights on mediation, and we've had discussions, we've had disagreements. And my topic for conversation today is transformation, personal transformation. Now, actually, the title says personal transformation in mediation, but really what it is personal transformation in a mediation and conflict resolution learning environment. And then how does that transfer to our mediation? So it starts with the learning environment, and then it moves on further. So I suppose I will start. So a little bit about me. My name is Andre O'Neill, as everybody can see, and I'm from Ireland, and I live in the county of Meath, which is also known as the Royal County. And I am absolutely passionate about mediation. I feel that it gives us another way. It gives us a better way to interact with people, to understand conflict, to resolve conflict, and even to, it's more than just resolving conflict. It's about, improving on what we have already. And like Vikram, what I would love to see is the ripple effect, or as Ken Cloke calls it, the mediated butterfly effect, where, each little ripple has an effect somewhere else down the line. And that, I suppose that's what we're all doing together in this conference, is each of us is bringing our own little vibration. And with that, that vibration will make a change. And we might never see what that significance is, or if it is a significance. But I think what's important is that we're trying for that better way, and we're trying to tell people about that better way. So I think that's as much as we can do, is to share the news, share the knowledge, and share the experience.
Perfect. So nice, Andrea. Yeah. I couldn't have done it better, for sure. So, but let's keep it wide. Let's keep it wide as personal transformation in whatever way it happens. Of course, you take it from where you were looking at it, but we'll keep it as a broad thing as we go along.
Yeah, now you'll like this, Vikram, because I'm actually going to take it on quite a personal note. So you'll get to know a little bit more about me in the process as well. So
about time, Andrea, about time.
Okay, so I'll just share the screen. And oh, why is that not coming up? Bear with me 1 second. Sorry, Vikram, I'll just have to.
No issue at all.
I don't know why that's not sharing. Hold on a minute. Can you see that now?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Okay. Can you see that presentation now?
No.
No. Okay.
What is happening when you press the button? Does it show anything at all?
Yeah. No. It's not showing my desktop, and it should do. So hold on now. Let me just go. Wait now. I do this all the time, so I don't know what's gone wrong. It's just showing me the whiteboard. It's not actually showing me my desktop. Hold on now.
Maybe just have to just open that first or something.
Yeah, no, I have it open. So sorry now, everybody, but I can actually do without it anyway. So I'll just
send it to me. Send it to me. I'll open it here if you want to do that. Yeah. You can start your introduction. Till then, I'll open it here.
And I just write now, like,
you can send it on the chat, you can send it otherwise. But this is going to be the thing, Andrea. People are going to introduce the conference.
yeah.
And people will be tired of me saying the same thing every time. It sounds so nice. You came up with something so different. Just nice to hear that.
Now, hopefully this will be it. Just bear me 1 second.
No issue at all. At any point you want to send it, you can.
I'm just going to see, can I open it now? Because I think because I had it in, there it is.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so hopefully everybody can see that. So what I'm going to talk about today is personal transformation in a mediation and conflict resolution learning environment. So how this topic came about was when I was introduced to mediation, I felt, I suppose about halfway through kind of, studying and looking into mediation and what involved, I could feel a shift in me. So I could feel a change in my approach to, things that were going on in the house. I could notice a change in how I dealt with relationships and my understanding of people. So I started to develop a deeper understanding of human nature. But how did that develop? It really developed because I started understanding myself better. And by understanding myself better, I was able to understand other people. Because when we peel away the layers, we get to, the core of who we are. And when we get to the core of who we are, we kind of realize, although we're all different, we're all very much the same. And so by looking at ourselves, we can then understand other people, and using that knowledge, we can, I suppose, broaden our mind, broaden our assumptions, question our assumptions, not even just kind of to broaden them. So as a result of that experience, I carried out some research, and the research was to see, was personal transformation actually identified in this learning environment that I was in? Because what I found so fascinating was there was 20 other students that studied with me. And each one of them, as we spoke about it, had experienced the very same thing. And even further than that, when I did the research, I looked at 59 reflective journals. I had a focus group. I looked at a program, 4 different programs over 3 years. And nearly unanimously, everybody had experienced a big change in their relationships. They had experienced a change in what they wanted to do in the world. They had experienced a change in their family environment. And really, for me, that meant, okay, so if this change can come about by understanding conflict, and right, we were doing a deep dive, like we were really, really focusing on it and understanding it. What in that could we use when we're working with, parties that are in dispute, or when we're working with schools? So I know Anna was talking about peer mediation. So if that really can cause a change in how we think, what are the components that need to be there for that to happen? So what I'm going to look at today, well, I've kind of told you now why I've picked this topic, and I will give you the official definition of what personal transformation is. And we look at what components need to be there for personal transformation. And when I say recommendations, what I really mean is, why is this important? So why is it important to know this? And how can we adapt that to make this change that we're all so passionate about? And, from speaking to different parties that have taken part in this conference, Vikram, the overriding thing is everybody wants to make a change. Everybody wants to find a better way. So why is this important, and why can this be incorporated? Or, that those people that are driving and working so hard to make a change, why is it important that they have this little piece of the jigsaw? So, and that's all it is. It's only a little piece of the jigsaw. There's so much more that goes in all different ways. But I'm I suppose my contribution is this little piece. So when I was looking at personal transformation, so I went in to kind of figure out what it was all about. I suppose when I was doing a literature review, just kind of trying to see what previous research was on it, I came across this guy called Mesro. And he carried out a study in 1978 in the US of women who had gone back to education. And in their, I mean, I suppose it would have been adult education, they would have been 30 plus. And when he did this research, what he came up with was 10 phases to identify if personal transformation has occurred. So firstly, what does he mean by personal transformation? So by personal transformation or transformative learning, they're one and the same. So, it's just a different way of saying it. So for transformative learning is learning that transforms problematic frames of reference to a more inclusive, discriminating, reflective, open, and emotionally able to change, right? So when we look at our frames of reference, what we're talking about is what our assumptions are. And our assumptions are based on our beliefs, our biases, our experience growing up. So they are, make up our frames of reference, as do our points of view. And really, they're interlinked. Our assumptions and our point of views are very similar. You form your points of views from your assumptions, so they kind of interlinked. And he refers to them as the frame of reference. Now, transformation can be a sudden thing or can be incremental. So for me, it was incremental. So it was gradually as I was studying and I was introducing new ways of dealing with conflict that I noticed a change in me, and I noticed a change in my relationships and how I worked with people. But it can also be something sudden, So, I mean, an experience that happens. I mean, if you witness somebody save somebody else who was running across the road, that could be transformational. That could make you decide, well, I'm going to campaign for better road safety. And that one instant could transform your purpose in life. But for me, in this case, and for most students that were on this course, it was something that was gradual as they introduced their new learnings, changed their frames of reference, and really adjusted their habits of mind. So changed how they saw the world. Okay, so what are these?
Okay, I won't cut you off. I'll come back to the slide later. No matter. We'll come back later.
So what are these 10 phases? So I suppose the best way for me to explain this is, what that was for me. So like if you look at disorientating dilemma, can't even speak today, Vikram. That is when something challenges the way we think. So for me, initially, I always saw conflict as negative. And when our parties come into the room and they're coming in for mediation, it's negative. It's just, the whole experience is negative. If I know you hate the word training courses, but if you're doing a training course and you ask people in the chat, how do you view conflict? 90% of them will say give some sort of negative connotation for. So it might be shouting, it might be, not talking, it might, they'll have different words to describe what conflict means for them. And most of it is negative. You'll have very few people saying, oh God, it offers an opportunity for growth, So I would have been one of those people. I would have seen conflict as negative and I would have avoided it. So I didn't like confrontation. I didn't like arguments and I didn't handle them very well. So then the next stage then is self-examination with feelings of guilt and shame. So when I start realizing that actually there's a better way to deal with conflict, the first thing that hit me, well, I won't say the first thing that hit me, the first thing was, wow, this is brilliant. But then as I start looking into myself and reflecting and thinking about how I'd handled things in the past, I felt so guilty. I felt so guilty that I hadn't had the skills to deal with conflict. And that in some cases, maybe I could have made things worse by not having those skills. So that's kind of an example of maybe guilt or shame that we might carry around stuff. And then the next step for me was to look at even to look at my family system that was around me. So socially, how was that affecting me? And then the other thing was to realize that this wasn't just my experience, that it was other people were experiencing the same thing too. So when I spoke to others in the classroom, they had the same feeling. So during, coffee breaks or things like that, and people would be talking about, God, you know what? I try to do this at home. I try to implement this at home. So this is like planning our course of, exploring first what things we could put in and use, and then planning a course of action. So how could I use these new skills at home? How could I change things at home? How could I implement them into my workplace? There were students who had, students might have been teachers themselves, and they were going back to their classrooms and they were introducing maybe peer mediation, or they were introducing story time where children each got the opportunity to tell their side of the story and to be listened to. They were going back and they were teaching the children about empathy. They were teaching them about active listening. So they were starting to incorporate it either in their family life or in their work life, as was I. So for me, it was changing. So I would have been very much the type of parent that I would have had a fear of Vikram. So a fear that if I didn't keep a tight ship, that something might go wrong and that it would be my fault in some way, and that I had to protect my children and things. So as a result of that, my children will laugh at me saying this now, I was quite controlling when I look back at it. But it wasn't controlling into wanting to have a hierarchy. It was controlling out of fear, because I was afraid that if I didn't control, something bad would happen. So it was actually being able to realize that I needed to change my approach to things, and that what happened with this controlling and the fear actually resulted in rebellion. So it wasn't helping me. So I had to change. So you can see how the learning was starting to change the way I thought about things and how I changed. And it was changing things for other people in the classroom as well. And again, we were provisionally trying out new roles. So, I mean, look, you were doing a certain amount of that in the classroom, where you were doing role plays and you were, trying out being the mediator, you were trying out being the party. But really the real learning came from actually doing it, like actually mediating in your own homes, mediating in your community, mediating in your workplace. So we were starting to try out these new things. And with that, as you start trying them, you get more confident in it, because you really know how to use them. You start knowing what works and what doesn't work. And you feel comfortable, because now it's your new way of thinking. You have a new frame of reference. You have a new worldview. And because you understand where it comes from, you're more confident using it, and because you can see the results of it. Okay. So then it's reintegrating it back into your life, and how you can use that. So most people, at the end of it, one of the questions when I was talking to the focus group was, what did this transformation mean for you, kind of as regards society? And one of the comments was, I was left with a burning desire to make a change in the world. And I think that is really important, because for many people, they started off with that change. So for me, that change for me was initially to change how I handled conflict, to change how I understood conflict. But by the end of it, as I'd gone through that process, at the end of it, that change wasn't just about me anymore. That change was something that was going to, affect in some way, or try to introduce it to society. And as I said before, it's a little jigsaw piece. It's a little ripple. But that was the effect this learning had. Now, it has to be, so there's 4 levels, right, to this. So there's elaborating your frames of reference. So we've kind of talked about that, that where you're kind of looking at the way you think, how you understood conflict, and you're changing that. So you're learning a new frame of reference. So the old frame of reference would have been conflict is bad. The new frame of reference is actually conflict isn't always bad. Sometimes it can be good. Sometimes it can result in something that's even better than what we have here. And so that's, this is just an example. Like, you can apply this to so many other things. And then you're transforming your points of view. So I would have had the point of view that in order to keep my children safe, I needed to run a tight ship and have a certain amount of control. But I had to change how I was and how I reacted. And actually, by giving them a sense of autonomy and being able to communicate why those things were important to me, to be able to communicate my own fears and to understand what they needed. And actually to let them say, oh, actually, we get that. We get they're the rules and we're okay to abide by them, but we need to do this. And we'd rather discuss it than kind of be told what to do. So you're moving from, do it because I said so, to tell me why that's important for you. Let me understand, and we can collaborate. We can work together and figure out what the best way is for our relationship, if it's, parent and child, or our family, or husband and wife, workplace, so it changes it's the same, but it can be transferable to different sections. So with these, now this is probably one of the most important things. So there are loads of options for people to go and receive training in mediation, and to receive training in conflict resolution or conflict coaching. But I suppose for me, and Vikram, you know me long enough now to know that for me, mediation is about who I am. And it's about, I suppose, mediating from the heart, mediating from the soul. It's about understanding, it's about that deep understanding of people and of ourselves, and not being afraid to connect with people, and not just to follow a process, even though the process is important, but it's so much more than that. So for personal or transformative learning or personal transformation to happen, Mesro said there should be 2 components. So one of those is critical reflection or self-reflection. And that is something that I use with my clients all the time. So I will, if we're in a mediation or we're doing a pre-mediation, I'll help them with some reflection exercises, and that's through questions. So I'd use a reflective process sometimes. Other times in between mediations, if there was something they were struggling with, I will send them a number of reflective questions to actually think about as their homework. They don't ever have to come back to me with the answers, but they're just questions to allow them kind of reflect on themselves and who they are in this conflict. And that is so important. Like, really, the self-reflection or reflective practice is the vehicle to this whole transformation. In my humble opinion, this is what makes the difference. Anybody can go in and learn a process. Anybody can go in and learn skills. The difference is, and the difference between learning a new set of skills and feeling that you've had some sort of transformation, is this element of reflection and reflective practice. And so when that reflective practice is there, that's going much deeper. That's much more than a cognitive way of thinking. That's much deeper. And that's what makes the difference. And to use that where our clients, our parties, or, people that we're even for our teenagers, like when we use reflective practice, it helps them learn and understand themselves. And that's what helps them transform even. That is a step in transformation from those teenage years into adulthood. That is so important. And the second component, according to Mesro, is rational discourse. So basically the opportunity to discuss our ideas and our thinking. And when I was in that learning environment, that was done with my peers. When I went in to learn about mediation, I was with the most amazing group. And I worked with them at the weekends. We became friends, we became connected. But this conference is one of those components. This conference is an opportunity for people to share their thoughts, their thinking. And it's this discourse, rational discourse, where we can reflect openly together in a safe space that transformation can take place. And that's what the World Conference offers here, is that opportunity for open discourse where people can say, well, actually, no, I don't think that's all right, but they're in a safe space to do that they're not going to be shunned for their opinions. They're going to be listened to. And if we don't understand Vikram, you're the master of questions. You always have the right questions. So sometimes I'm thinking back to the conversation we had the other day, and I felt I was going around in circles with the conversation. But you had the right questions to bring out the top, to help, I suppose, give a clear thought process to what the discussion was. So that's really providing that space so that we can understand our thinking and why it's there. So really, I suppose what the findings were when I did this research was that students in a mediation and conflict resolution learning environment do experience personal transformation. It's this personal transformation, not a negative thing, it's positive. So it's a feel-good thing. It's something that people feel good about. So it's a change for the good. Reflective practice is key. So that's the number one thing. So reflective practice has to be part of the process. And it benefits those around us. So when we change in a positive way, we help change those around us. Now, this is very, there's a huge amount of arguments to and fro that I could spend, you'd need, I suppose, 10 days to probably go through it all. And I mean, some people would say that, look, it's just good learning. That's what it is. It's no more than good learning. It's not transformation. Others will say that it's developmental. So it's the stage of your life you're at. So, you're at that stage where you want to make a difference anyway. So that's the reason it happens. But I have seen personally, in my experience of working with families, working with people as individuals, working with people as couples, that this actually does transform them. They do change. And I'm not saying that it's a noticeable change for everybody to see, but it's those little seeds that we plant. And by using reflection in our process, what happens is they start to question, they start to look deeper, and they do start to try to understand. And we help them understand. So it's by our questions. So if somebody, if I'm trying to think of a good example. If somebody said that when they come into the room, I get very nervous. And when I get nervous, I start, I go on the defensive and I start arguing. So I would provide a number of reflective questions around that. So what is it about it? Even where do you feel it? Where do you feel that nervousness? When did you feel that before? Have you ever experienced that before? Is it what that person says? Is it what that person does? So you're trying to understand where their fear comes from. And that helps them figure out where their fear is from. And a bit like me, when I was talking about, my sense of control came from a place of fear. So really, when I looked back, and that fear went back to when I was younger, my mother, because my dad was sick, she had, full responsibility of 5 children in the house. So it was a very controlled, tight ship. And she made us afraid in that, oh, don't go out there because this might happen to you. Don't go out there. So I carried that fear with me. But when I understood that actually that's where my fear came from, I was able to say, oh, okay, so that's where that's about. Am I in that same situation now? No, I'm not. Is my situation different now? Yes, it is. What is different? Well, what is different is what I know. What is different is about the environment I'm in. What difference is about my circumstances are different. So I was able to let go of the fear because I understood it. And then I was able to communicate, because if you're in conflict with somebody and they see it as control, but actually it's about fear, when you can explain that and articulate it to the other person, you've gone to a deeper level of understanding. And it's like when we look at the conflict pyramid and we start with, the issue, and we get under the issues, and we ask the questions, and we get under, and we're developing an understanding. At the very bottom of that, what we get is connection. And that's where the connection comes from. So for me, when you get that connection, you can't help but be transformed. So
connection. I think that's the key word.
It is connection. Yeah. Yep. So this is just, I suppose, just to end on a funny, not to end the presentation end of it, is that my children first started to refer to me as Mammy 2.0 and Mammy with updates. Okay. So pre the updates, I was, no, do it. They say, I don't want to do it. And I say, you'll do it because I said you do it. I'm your parent and just do it. Right. So people will have an awful impression of me after this. And then that's, about the fear and the control. And then what was happening there, it was causing conflict, so there was constant kind of, and not major conflict, but arguments in the house over, I want to do this, and no, you're not doing this, and and it just was going nowhere. It was going around in circles. But when I started to understand conflict and understand values, so really when we start stripping back everything, we start realizing kind of what's important to us and why they're important to us, and reassessing what our values are. So say, for example, I would have, as a child been brought up to respect authority. And I would have said, okay, that was, that's probably a value. You have to do what somebody tells you to do. And, even my own children going to school was, do as your teacher tells you, and And you're, I suppose, following suit from the way you were parent. You use some of those parenting skills because nobody gives us a book. So we're going on our own experiences. And when I looked deeper in it, I went, actually, I do respect authority, but is it a value? And it wasn't a value, because if doing as authority said was going to infringe on some way on my integrity or family or connection or, all the things that were important to me, well, then actually I could kick authority to the side, so really for me, then authority wasn't a value. It was something I respected, but I wouldn't do it if it jeopardized my integrity, so depending on where that authority came from. I'm not talking about breaking the law or anything like that, but, when we're children, I would have grown up in a generation where you didn't question authority. You just did as you were told, where the generation of my children that they're growing up, they do question authority. And for a long time, I found that very hard, and that I was going, don't question me, I'm your parent, and And they were right to question, because they knew that, something that they valued was maybe more important, and they needed a discussion. They needed it to be understood why it was important to them. So really, that all came about. Those Mammies with updates, or Mammy 2.0, came about because of huge amount of self-reflection. I think my husband said to his friends one night when we were out, he goes, I'll never win an argument again. And I said, but you see, it's different now. I don't want to win an argument. I don't want to win an argument anymore. I want us to work together so that that we're going to be collaborating, and I'll understand what you want and you'll understand what I want. So there's the change as well. It wasn't about winning the argument anymore. So you'd moved from that win-lose to a win-win, that you wanted to work within a relationship, within whatever environment you're in. And it's like when we're helping people with conflicts, we're not there so that one wins or one loses, or that the person that we think is right wins. We're there so that they both walk away from the process feeling that they have got what was fair, and that they both feel like they've got what they wanted. Now, they might have compromised, they might have worked collaborated with each other to get to that, but they didn't lose because they did it together. It was something they both agreed on. No judge came in and went, okay, this is what I think is fair. You're getting that and you're getting that. It was something that they worked on together. So there was no losers.
Yes. But now, Andrea, of course, you're going ahead. Okay, there is one more slide, is it?
One more slide, last one.
As many.
So
I couldn't see that.
So why does this matter? And really, I suppose why it matters is it's important that when we're working with people that are in conflict, or we're working, even if it's an individual on their own and they're struggling with conflict and they want to find a way out of conflict or find a better way to deal with conflict, that really, if they want to change who they are around conflict, reflective practice has to be key. It has to be part of what they do, because it's only when we reflect that we can truly understand ourselves and peel back the layers. And when we understand ourselves, we can understand others. So when I learned about my values and I was able to identify really what my true values were, I actually realized, do you know what? When I look back at conflicts I've had, I've probably triggered people by not recognizing or understanding their values. So it's that kind of reflection. And we're so busy in life that sometimes we don't give ourselves that chance for reflection. And it takes maybe a mediator or a conflict coach to come in and say, okay, here's questions I want you to reflect on. Because sometimes if you said to an individual, like, what would be a good question to ask yourself right now? They'd struggle with the question, where if you give them a few questions to reflect on in between mediations, it just helps them kind of find a way, and then they come up with their own questions and they learn to reflect. They understand what reflection is. So reflection is not just going over and over and over and going backwards. Reflection is about looking at things, seeing why they're there, and then making a plan of action. So understanding what it is and then moving forward, not going back and then going over it again and again and again and feeling that guilt and the shame. So at the start of it, I would have felt guilt and shame for how I dealt with conflict. But actually, that's not going to change anything. Feeling guilty or shameful over the way we handled a situation is not going to change anything. So what's important about this reflective practice is that action comes after it, or that we move forward, or we make a change with what didn't work. And we might need some help with that, and that's okay. And, one of the things that in those 10 steps or 10 phases that Mesro designed or came up with, not everything has to happen for personal transformation to be experienced. But what was found in a later study by, I can't think of her name now, but there was a later study done. And what she discovered was that the more steps of those 10 phases you experience, the more likelihood you were going to say at the end of it, God, I feel different, or that's different, or that's changed the way I think. I actually feel like I've personally changed, or I'm a different person at the end of it. The other thing that's important is the environment that allows for discourse. So it won't work if you're going to go back into an environment and have a discussion where somebody's going to knock you down, or somebody's not going to listen to you, or somebody's not going to protect the confidentiality of what you're saying. Because when we reflect, some of those things can, as I said, there is guilt and shame there. So some of those things can be quite hard to say out loud and to share with another individual. So, some of the things I shared with you today, like, well, when I initially start reflecting on things like that, I would not have been comfortable saying those out loud, or I would not have been comfortable sharing them with anybody. And I certainly would not have been sharing them live on YouTube. But the difference is I had a safe environment where I could discuss those things and actually realize that I had the power to make a difference. I had the power to change that. And that power was within me. And I had to change who I was first in order to make a change anywhere else. So that, again, is the support space. And then this is not just for mediators who are providing education, or mediators who are, doing training courses, or people who are going into training courses. This information is important because every time we go into a mediation, every time we go into a conflict coaching session, every time that we go into a community dispute or anything else, is an opportunity for education. It's an opportunity for reflection. So by using these things that we know, we actually can help increase that ripple effect that we want to happen, increase that ripple effect that you have provided the platform for, Vikram. So it's just, even though they're just little tiny, tiny steps, and you might never know that you've made that change. But once you start planting that seed and people start thinking and reflecting on themselves, and you provide the space then for them to come back and say, okay, this is what has come up for me. And you don't, there's no judgment, and there's nobody going, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. There's none of that there, that you actually say, okay, and where did that come from? And, so how would you like to be going forward? How would you like to be in conflict going forward? And it's offering that kind of plan of action, that this was a learning, so how you were in conflict, how you were in, whatever it is that you've reflected on. What have you learned from that? And how can you use that learning to be a better version of yourself going forward? And, if that's in our family, if that's in our workplace, if that's in our community, that has to have a positive impact on those around us. And then again, understanding transformative learning for parties in dispute. So when we're in a mediation, everybody comes in, is in a dilemma, because they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. And they're stuck. They wouldn't be in mediation if they weren't stuck. There's very few that come to mediation at the start of conflict. And when they come and they're really stuck, they don't know a different way. So it's up to us to use our skills that we have learned and use our understanding of conflict to help them change their frame of reference around conflict, to help them change their habits of mind. So how they deal with things, how they deal with conflict. I suppose an example of it would be if you're dealing with a couple who are in dispute and they, don't communicate. They've argued the same way for 20 years. And even though they've never got anywhere and it's never changed and just goes around in circles, at no stage did they change it, because that's just the way it was. That's just how they argued. But when you maybe ask a question, so is there, how do you contribute to that other person's difficult behavior? So what do you do that causes them to be like that? And questions like that will get people to think. So why do they behave like that? So it's not even just thinking, reflecting on where they are in conflict, but reflecting why the other person might be in conflict in that way and how they've contributed to it. So really, for me, understanding personal transformation, the components of personal transformation, is a valuable tool when we're dealing with parties in dispute, when we're educating, and when we're trying to create this ripple effect. And without you even, I suppose, having this discussion with me today, Vikram, you do it automatically. You ask the reflective questions. You provide the place for that safe space for mediators to discuss their opinions, their views, to disagree, to agree, and to actually then change. There's slides being shared, there's information being shared. People connect with people and then go, God, I saw you talking on Vikram's World Conference on such a topic. Can you tell me a bit more about that? And they share that information. Or, God, I always did it this way. I didn't realize that way was a good way. And they might change the way they do something. So that's why it's so important.
Wow, Andrea, what you've just said, and that look, I don't know, when am I going to start taking out these clips? It's a beautiful clip that can come out of that. It's really, of course. I mean, I mean, saying all that, I don't even realize. Okay, all that happens here. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it does, Vikram. You see, we don't understand the thing, and it's the little key elements. So the two important components, is reflective practice and an opportunity to have a conversation in a safe environment where we can discuss those changes and we can take a plan of action. So really, they are two very important components. Do I feel that it was because of the stage of life I was in? Because, I mean, some will argue it was because of where you were in your life. Possibly, because, that's also true, that I have, more experience and everything else. But something was triggered. And when I look at those 10 phases, I have certainly ticked, most of those boxes, if not all those boxes. And when I did a review on the students in the university where I studied, most of them experienced that same process, and they mightn't have experienced all of them, but they experienced some of them. So it's worth a try. If this is something that will help people transform how they see conflict, well, then it's worth having those little tools or that part of the maths equation so that we can use it.
Absolutely. But when did MAMI 2.0 come in?
2018 was when I was given that lovely title, and they think it's hilarious. Yeah, they think it's hilarious. Or the other thing they call me, no, it's not. They call me Sen Mammy is the other thing, because I'm much calmer. I sound like I was a terrible mother. I really wasn't a terrible mother, Vikram. I actually have always, being a mother has always been very important to me. But there was things I could improve, and I'm okay with having updates. If we have any operating system, it comes, it gets updates. But sometimes I find people are afraid to say they don't know, or they don't understand, or that they need help, or that, is there a better way? Because we carry this fear of judgment that if we say, actually, I don't know enough, and I need to know more about conflict, or I need to understand, or, that actually is okay. That is the brave thing to do, to actually say, I can't handle this conflict and I need help. I don't understand conflict and I need to understand it. That's not easy. That's not easy. And it's not easy to say it out loud, because we're just expected. Because I'm using myself as an example, I'm talking about parenting, but you can apply this to loads of different areas of life. But because a society just automatically thinks we should know how to parent, because we learn from our parents. But what really has to be realized is that each generation is different. Each environment has changed. The environment is changing every time. So we have to adapt. We have to change as well. And we have to say, actually, I could do with a little guidance here. And somebody say, yeah, okay, no bother. And so that's what I try to do. I try to give a little bit of my experience, my knowledge, and my learnings to help other people so that they don't struggle with conflict.
But go ahead. I'm just saying that everything changes. A lot of things change. But what about those core values, those non-negotiable values? What are those for you? Do you have those? Do you think which will be those which will stay?
Family is my core value. So that will not change. I won't, that is my, I suppose, referee in life. So if I have a decision to make, family would be a big one. My integrity would be another one. Another one for me would be connection. So I need connection. I value connection. And I suppose as a race, we are social beings, and we need that sense of connection. So, but that is one of my values. And so if somebody said to me, here's an amazing job, we're going to pay you, a silly salary, and you're going to be sat up in an office on your own. You don't have to talk to anybody all day, and you won't be interacting with people, but you will be paid a massive amount of money up in this thing. I'd say, no, thank you very much, because I would go insane. So I don't even just value connection, I need connection. And then say if I had to do, actually, I'll give you a good example, and it comes back to you. I was doing a book review with yourself and Michael Lang, and something came up in my family that was really important, and I had to change it. And I struggled with that for 24 hours thinking, God, I don't want to let Vikram and Michael down, and this is my family. And by the end of the day, I went with family because that's my core value. And I also knew that, for me to go back to you and Michael and say, something came up in relation to my family, and that I knew from, I know family is important to you. I know family is important to Michael. So I knew you would understand that as one of my values. And you would know that if it was something like, I don't know, something ridiculous, like I needed to hoover the stairs, and that's why you'd go, well, that's actually insulting and that's disrespectful. And so, that's a different end of it. So if something came up with, family that wasn't as important or wasn't something, I would have picked doing, the conversation with yourself and Michael, but because this was something that was family, something that was really important, it was something that wouldn't happen again, I had to call it. And by knowing your own values, they're like, as I said, they're your guiding light, they're your referee, they're the one that helps you make your final decision.
Well, Well, I think that part of it is important in relation to what you were saying, because of course you said the aspect of listening to authority was a value you thought was something that was important for you, but you were able to understand maybe that's not the way it is. But what about that situation when something is so important for you, and then, okay, we're talking about, of course, this situation which is coming for a show, that's one thing, but say, where actually the integrity aspect comes in, and then handling that in relation to conflict, how would you do that? Would you rather stay in conflict, or would you rather resolve the conflict and in compromise on that value, integrity? Let's look at integrity or whatever else. Something that's really core.
So if you're talking about while I was as a mediator, in my capacity as a mediator, if I was mediating and something wasn't right for me, and it was going to, for me, that brought up a question about my own integrity, well, then I couldn't, in good faith, I wouldn't be honest with those parties if I stayed there. And that we discussed that the other day. And so I would have to say, no, actually, for whatever reason. So I'm trying to think, like, if I don't want to, I don't want to bring stuff up that are people's private, I'm conscious of confidentiality when I'm talking about stuff. But say an issue arose around, say it was to do with, physical violence, or it was to do with a child safety issue or something like that. And I felt that by me mediating actually was going to put somebody else in danger. Well, I couldn't stay there and mediate that case just so that I could say I could bring that conflict to a resolution, but I could put somebody else in danger. So I couldn't do that. So I would have to step away from that. And I would have to make sure that if somebody was in danger, that they were going to be safe.
Because I was coming more into, say, supposing in your family situation. It's not, now you're not a mediator, but now we're talking about personal transformation, going into, of course, family and other places. So I'm saying in that kind of a situation where there is a core value that you have, say, be honest, say, not tell the truth, not tell a lie is a core value for you, and you see, say, your child is lying.
Nice. Yeah.
In that kind of a situation, how would you handle that? It's a conflict for you.
Oh yeah. So say when, that's a very good example, actually, because one of the things I do when I work with families as a group is I get the parents to work on their own values first and tell me which values are non-negotiable. So there's certain values that are non-negotiable. And when we're working within a value system or within a family system, and there's values that are non-negotiable, well, they need to be communicated. So and that's the importance of it, that others understand what values are non-negotiable.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So there is values that are non-negotiable, and lying might be one of them. Being truthful.
So in a situation like that, So in a situation like that, that is a core value. That's a non-negotiable value. So would you rather let that conflict stay as within them, rather than where is the resolution? You can't say, okay, you can lie for 3 days in the week and say the truth. So if we keep talking about
the resolution is about you developing the skills to communicate why those values are important to you. And I think that's really what it is. It's about communicating and helping others understand the importance of that value to you. Now, that's not necessarily saying they always will, but sometimes when we live within a system, be it a family system, there are certain things that we have to do. My brother calls it family taxes. So when you have to do things that you don't actually like, they're called family taxes. But everybody agrees that they're a tax. And to be part of that community, they're the things that we agree on. I mean, look, it's no different than living in, our environment, our social environment. There's, things that you don't do as part of society that are not acceptable. There's things that would be considered breaking the law if we did them. And we all, abide by those rules as best we can. And sometimes, we might step outside that because for one reason or another. But then that's about understanding. So getting, developing an understanding of why we stepped outside it. And, communicating why that value is important.
Because I'm just look, you people are the larger conflict resolvers. I'm just only into the dispute resolution part of it. Because in a situation like that, I would rather let that conflict stay, because there is no meeting point when that value. It's an important aspect of life in someone's. So in that sense, I'm saying to say that we can actually resolve every conflict, or should we resolve every conflict, I will leave that to you on whether you should or not. I'm on the dispute part of it. I don't see it as a dispute. I see it as a conflict, because I'm not going to take you to court about it. So let me just say that part of it, because I'm saying if people, everything revolves around resolving conflict. But I think certain aspects of compromising on non-negotiable values, I think is not really a resolution of a conflict. It's actually, I don't think, yeah.
But I'd say you mightn't resolve the conflict, but what you do is you might develop a deeper understanding of the other person and why they have that view. Sorry, Vikram, I'm going to have to go in 2 seconds. Hi, Lisa. I have to drop my daughter to get her booster injection.
Good you said hi to Lisa. I was like, oh, I have to go. I can't see Lisa now. Lisa, you are going to join us on audio, aren't you? At some stage, you will. I'm sure you will. So anyway, Andrea, very nice. Thank you very much. And Lisa's here. Let me tell her also. Of course, this was about personal transformation, Lisa, but we have a session on transformative mediation on the 29th, and you can guess who's going to do it.
Oh, who?
The one that you're going to guess, that one.
Oh, really? Baruch Bush?
Yes.
Or
yes.
wait.
Yes.
Is it really?
Yes.
Oh, you finally got Baruch Bush in.
Yes,
Good.
I did. No, it was very nice
of him. I have to look at that now, because that sounds like it'd be a good one, Lisa.
I have, I've been saying, and Baruch Bush is really interesting. And of course, I, have been trying to get him in so many different ways, but he was hesitant. But I think, I'm glad that finally that he connected. That's great.
Yeah. So what I will do right now is I will cut this live stream, maybe start the next one. So Andrea, thank you very much. Always
thank you,
a pleasure.
Everybody. Bye. Oh, thank you so much. Bye, Lisa.
Bye.
Now let me stop this and let me